So we're gonna go back to this rat, Stephen Miller.
Pledging full and complete cooperation.
But they also just passed a law saying that if you supported the operation outlawing individuals or threatening with criminal penalties individuals if they supported the operation against Maduro. I think they did that today.
Well, the good news there, Jake, is that nobody inside of Venezuela supported the operation, so it's a law without meaning or effect. Look, Jake, there's going to be...
Paid close attention to that. Nobody in Venezuela supported the operation when it was happening, right? That's the first true thing he said. That's the first true thing that he has said up to this point, right? Nobody in Venezuela, except for people who were falling in line with the opposition party, and who were vested in anti-Maduro politics, right, want this to happen.
Some posturing that occurs when a nation has been so thoroughly defeated in this way. The United States of America, think about this, Jake. The United States of America has encircled this nation for months. One of the largest naval armadas in history has been stationed off its coast.
Yeah.
Fighter jets have been encircling the island. We've been engaging in kinetic lethal strikes against Maduro's drug boats and trained Arauco gang members leaving the island.
Yeah.
We have launched a complete oil embargo of the ghost fleet, the dark ships.
We've
and
been
now
covering
on
all
top
of it.
of that,
Yeah.
and now on top of all of that, right, Maduro is sitting in a jail cell in New York, as is his wife. So of course there's going to be, this is very important though, of course there's going to be some posturing.
Okay.
Without giving anything away, I want to be very clear. Very clear. The government has sent messages, this is such an important point, Jake, to the Secretary of State, to our senior U.S. government official negotiators. They have sent message after message making clear that they will meet the terms, demands, conditions, and requirements of the United States.
Okay.
And I want to be very clear about that, Jake.
So let's the question about who is now running Venezuela is one that even members of Congress who are big Trump supporters say they're not quite sure about. Senate Majority Leader John Thune told CNN's Manu Raju that he doesn't know what President Trump meant by his assertion that the U.S. is running Venezuela, and he said he needs more information. Can you tell us what the president means when he says, is acting President Delcy Rodriguez in charge? Is she running Venezuela or not?
Well, what the president
Right
said
here.
is true. The United States of America is running Venezuela. By definition, that's true. Jake, we live in a we live in a world in which you can talk all you...
The United States is running Venezuela. It's not saying the quiet part out loud. I don't want anybody to be surprised by this. It's really not like a huge surprise or whatever. I mean, a lot of people want to kind of waffle and think that this is about oil or whatever. It's not. It's just about control. It's just about domination. It's just about like raw, naked, fascistic imperialism. You heard it from him. You heard it from this guy. They're not going to lie to you. The Trump administration will lie to you about a lot of things. They're not going to lie to you about this. And the reason they're not going to lie to you about this is because this type of behavior is exactly what brings approval rating up for their base. And as long as they can keep jangling keys in front of jangling keys in front of their peasant-brained audience of 30-something million Americans, it doesn't matter how low approval ratings get. Trump is in power. His admin is in power. Stephen Miller is basically a shadow president. It doesn't matter what they do anymore. They have unlimited power. They just kidnapped and are charging a sovereign leader for what? It's not even the fact that we can charge him in the country. That's not what matters. That is legal. What does matter is that you can't invade a foreign country and kidnap their leader, because what kind of precedence does that set? By the way, we've done a lot. We have done a lot of insane imperialist shenanigans in the course of American history. There is not one event in the United States that is like this, man. Like, I don't even know what to say. It's insane how unprecedented this is. Because, and at this point, like, you talk about law, right? And you're like, well, this isn't legal. And it's like, when I say they can't, I'm not talking about law, okay? When I say they can't do that, they can't kidnap a sovereign leader over a sovereign nation independent from us, I'm saying that they can't do that because the type of precedence that it sets the stage for a multipolar world. One that, first of all, frankly, the United States is not capable of managing, okay? Case in point, had the Soviet Union not collapsed and kept going, we would have lost. We would have lost the Cold War. Had the United States not outlived the Soviet Union, we would have lost that economic war of attrition. There is no way we could have survived that. By survive, I mean, like, we wouldn't all be dead, but I mean, there's no way that the United States would have come out of that the global superpower. But not much would have changed, because imperialism follows a very specific direction of behavior. And when an empire is dying, this is what they do.
You want about international niceties and everything else. But we live in a world, in the real world, Jake, that is governed by strength, that is governed by force, that is governed by power. These are
this right here. The real world, Jake, that's governed by force, strength, power. It's not even might makes right, okay? It's might. It's just might is the right of way. This is what I meant by he's a Nazi. Because only a Nazi would talk like this. Only a Nazi would talk like this. This is not the statement of a liberal. This is not even the statement of an American conservative or just a pure civic nationalist. Okay? This is the statement of a Nazi. Because his argument is that we are taking over Venezuela because we fucking can and because we want to. And no other reason. None. There's not a whole lot to add to this part other than this. This type of political engagement is called realpolitik. The way that Stephen Miller is arguing for his position and the way that he is presenting the argument, because this is when he finally makes the argument for justifying the invasion of Venezuela, this is called realpolitik. And by realpolitik, it just means there's no moral or empirical or material arguments being made here. It's just who has more power, right? Take China and Taiwan, right? The realpolitik of that situation isn't the, like, whatever narrative that China has, that Taiwan is a part of China, or that whatever, the history behind the two, or, Putin's 5,000 word document on the narrative of how Ukraine really is a part of Russia or whatever. Hello, Olive. It's nice to see you in my chat. Thank you for hitting me up. I am a stank bitch. It's not about any of that. By realpolitik, it's the same degree of engagement that Stephen Miller is engaging in. The reason why China wants Taiwan is because there is extension over the hemisphere that is to be had there, and China wants it not necessarily because it's a part of China, but because it becoming a part of China increases specific types of industrial and factory output, and other stuff like that. It's just extending power and influence over the South China Sea, etc., right? Venezuela, same thing, right? No, Venezuela, we're not going in there because democracy. We're not going in there because they're not free and we're going to free them or whatever. We're going in there because that hemisphere needs to be under our direct control, and that's all we want. That's it, right? Like, that's why.
The iron laws of the world
But
that
are you
existed
saying
since
that
the beginning of time.
But in terms
The
of
United
day-to-day
States-
operations in Venezuela, that is acting President Rodriguez, right? It's not some sort
Listen
of
carefully here.
emissary.
No, what I'm saying is, we'll keep going here, Jake. So I want to say what I'm saying, and you'll follow up. But what I'm saying is just one level above that, which is that, by definition, we are in charge, because
There you go. So the VP is not in charge, right? And the reason, and again, this kind of ties back into the Mikado thing. He does look like a sentient egg. Thank you. He does look like a sentient egg. So this kind of ties into the thing that I was talking about earlier. The reason why Mikado's never going to become, or I think it's Machado or whatever, I don't even know. The reason why she's never going to become president of Venezuela is because, despite the fact that she's a fascist and part of the opposition party against Maduro, she's not entirely aligned with U.S. interests, right? However, the VP accepted the presidential assent, filling in the shoes of Maduro without any resistance to the United States, right? And you say, like, oh, look at the things that she said. Like, words. Really? Oh, she says, oh, this is a Zionist, uniquely Zionist invasion that the United States is engaging in. She has the power to push back. She has the ability to do something, anything. What is she doing? What is she really doing? Mikado, on the other hand, not completely aligned with U.S. interests, but wanted to curry favor with President Trump. It doesn't get any dumber than this, man. So yeah, we run the country now. Welcome, 51st state Venezuela. You beat Puerto Rico.
we have the United States military stationed outside the country. We set the terms and conditions. We have a complete embargo on all of their oil and their ability to do commerce. So for them to do commerce, they need our permission. For them to be able to run an economy,
And it's hilarious too, right? Because like the arguments being made, thank you, Olive. I was talking about this earlier. The arguments being made, in regards to like, oh, we need oil or whatever. Like, we don't need oil, right? This isn't about oil. This isn't about any of that. It's like a front that some people in the Republican Party are pushing, a narrative that some people in the Republican Party are pushing, right? Another front or narrative that the Republican Party is pushing, the GOP is saying that like, oh, we need to stabilize Venezuela so that, their people don't come over here and immigrate. God forbid we have an actual population birth rate chart that looks normal and not like South Korea or China. God forbid we have some immigrant labor. No, those are false arguments because gas has never been cheaper, man. Gas has never been cheaper. We have more oil than we know what to do with. It's insane. And also, the oil in Venezuela is shit. It's garbage. It's crude oil. We don't have anything to do with it. The oil companies have gone on record by stating that multiple times in many conferences and whatnot, that they're not all that terribly interested in Venezuelan oil. right? Why would we even need to go to Venezuela when Trump spent the last year talking about our clean and beautiful coal? Our clean and beautiful coal. Like, why? Why? People are asking why. It's power. It's because we can. And that is the end state of imperialism. That is the end state of where empire leads. When it's finally dying, it stops making arguments and it just starts taking land. Let's make a comparison to Nazi Germany. Nazi Germany did not have to take Austria. Austria liked them. Like, tentatively. They were allies. They liked them. And they would have allied with them. And they did. So why did Nazi Germany invade Austria? Because it is easier to take over that country and to put your people in power and to call it your own so you can get stuff done there. Wait, dog, they just gave 11 coal plants, 3 of which are in Illinois, by the way, the ability to skirt regulations until 2031. Oh, that's great. That's hilarious. I'm so happy. That's by the way, some of the worst air pollution in the entire country up there. So, you know, I'm glad that that's happening. Yeah, no, it's pretty terrible. What was I saying again? Oh, yeah, Nazi Germany and Austria. So it's easier to put your guys there in power instead of having to negotiate with an ally. It's just easier, right? It's kind of similar to you are making a material difference. You're in a very important position in society, and I am very much appreciative of your work. No, it's seriously an issue. The way that people are thinking about imperialism right now, because I don't know, I go on threads and I see a bunch of people who are trying to figure out why America is going down into Venezuela, and they need to understand that it's like when Nazi Germany invaded Austria. Like, we just want our people in Venezuela so we don't have to deal with Venezuelans. Even if we made them an ally, we would still have to negotiate with them. Stephen Miller doesn't want to negotiate. Trump doesn't want to negotiate. This admin doesn't want that middle step right there. They just want to do stuff. They just want power. They just want to do it because they can. They just want a ball, man.
They need our permission. So the United States
Yeah,
is in charge. The United States is running the country during this transition period.
If that's
now,
true,
obviously that doesn't mean that President Trump is setting the bus fare schedule inside the country.
So
he might as well, like,
the indictment.
He might as well, though. Like,
the military were acting on from 2020 was of 6 people. 2 of them were seized on Saturday by our special operators. There are 4 other individuals indicted who remain in Venezuela. Is the U.S. demanding that they be turned over? That one of them is Maduro's son. One of them is a former government official. One is a current government official. And one of them is the head of Tren de Aragua, as I'm sure you know. Are they going to be turned over if President Trump is, in fact, running Venezuela in the way you describe?
Well, I don't want to, obviously, you know, we have to balance here, Jake, which I think you more than most understand. We have to balance between, of course, what I can say to you publicly versus very close-hold conversations that might be happening privately. And I know you understand and respect that. But I'll answer the question in this way. There might be individuals who are fugitives from American justice that could become part of a future conversation. But it's also true that for government leaders inside of Venezuela, as the president has said, right, we want an interim government that will respect the interests of the people of Venezuela, that wants a good, peaceful, secure future for Venezuela. So I would just say it this way. For those who may be indicted, the best choice they can possibly make is to be part of a constructive decision-making process for the future of Venezuela. The best decision they can make is to cooperate fully and completely with the United States to be part of building this brighter future for Venezuela during this interim period?
I don't know how else to put it, man. He kind of just takes the words out of my mouth because he's just telling you exactly what he wants to do and why he's doing it. So there's no like waffling about, man. Like that, it's just that way. This is the state of the world that we live in now. We're doing hardcore old style imperialism, and that is the direction that the world is going. That's not all. That's not all. Let's see. Where was it? Oh, yeah, right here. Okay. Nope, wrong one. This guy. This guy. Mr. Rubio. JD Vance, your Ozempic ass down there. Marco Rubio, world's greatest Cuba hater. Okay. The world's most elite Gusano. Strongest Gusano soldier. Take it away.
Now we want to get to Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth. Let's listen.
Step one is the stabilization of the country. We don't want it descending into chaos. Part of that stabilization, and the reason why we understand and believe that we have the strongest leverage possible, is our quarantine. As you've seen today, 2 more ships were seized. We are in the midst right now and in fact about to execute on a deal to take all the oil. They have oil that is stuck in Venezuela. They can't move it because of our quarantine and because it's sanctioned. We are going to take between 30 and 50 million barrels of oil. We're going to sell it in the marketplace at market rates, not at the discounts Venezuela was getting. That money will then be handled in such a way that we will control how it is dispersed in a way that benefits the Venezuelan people, not corruption, not the regime. So we have a lot of leverage to move on the stabilization.
Thank you, Vanishing Efficiency, for giving me the opportunity to ban you.
And that is ensuring that American, Western, and other companies have access to the Venezuelan market in a way that's fair. Also, at the same time, begin to create the process of reconciliation now.
Holy shit, man. These people fucking, they look like demons. Marco Rubio would support uploading our consciousness into the machine if it meant he could digitally sanction Cuba until 3026. Yeah. That one's good. That one's good.
Venezuela. So that
no,
the opposition
I'm gonna let him waffle a little bit because he kind of speaks for himself here.
Begin to rebuild civil society, and then the third phase, of course, will be one of transition. Some of this will overlap. I've described this to them in great detail. We'll have more detail in the days to follow. But we feel like we're moving forward here in a very positive way.
How long will this take, Secretary?
Some senators who were in that briefing
Civil society.
variously is that you're winging it, that there's no plan for Venezuela going forward.
Yeah, I know. They're going to say that. I used to be a senator too. That's what you always say when it's the other party. The bottom line is we've gone into great detail with them about the planning. We've described it to them. In fact, it's not just winging it. It's not just saying or speculating it's going to happen. It's already happening. Like the oil arrangement that we've made with PDVSA on their sanctioned oil that they can't move. Understand, they are not generating any revenue from their oil right now. They can't move it unless we allow it to move because we have sanctions, because we're enforcing those sanctions. This is tremendous leverage. We are exercising it in a positive way. The president described it last night. Secretary will have more to say on it today, who is involved in running this portfolio. And we feel very positive that not only will that generate revenue that will be used to the benefit of the Venezuelan people, and we're ensured that that's what the case is, but it also gives us an amount of leverage and influence and control over how this process moves forward.
Mr. Secretary, on Denmark, sir. Mr. Secretary, on Denmark. Why is the administration not taking Denmark's offer to discuss the situation in Greenland? And
this is what I was waiting for, right here.
Intervention off the table?
I'm not here to talk about Denmark or military intervention. I'll be meeting with them next week. We'll have those conversations with them then. And but I'm not having anything further to add to that today.
Can you clarify your comments to lawmakers? Does the U.S. intend to buy Greenland? Does the U.S. intend to buy Greenland? Can you clarify your comments to lawmakers this week?
Well, that's always been the president's intent from the very beginning. He said it very early on. I mean, this is not new. He talked about it in his first term.
We need a second Alaska.
Examined or looked at how could we acquire Greenland. There's an interest there, but so I just reminded them of the fact that not only the Truman.
First of all, one of the reasons why I think they might want to go after Greenland, outside of just the general fascistic like land grab for a dying empire, blah 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 blah, has to do with the fact that, man, it's going to be some great beachfront property after all this global warming stuff. You know what I mean? You want to see what Greenland's projected to look like after all that ice melts away. Yeah, let's take a look at that real quick. Yeah, that's gonna be real good here. Ooh. Let's pull that picture up real quick. I saw a hilarious one. All right, let's see. I had it pulled up earlier. Look at that. What is it? Found it. Look at that. Yes, they unfucked my internet. Olive, I have 5 gigabytes upload speed. I'm multi-streaming to YouTube right now. How's the stream quality? So this is from like an archive report from 2005. By the way, these projections are super outdated. This is the only picture I could find. I was looking at a different one, but oh no, Greenland looks like a donut whenever all the ice will look like a donut whenever all the ice eventually melts, right? And it's going to be some great beachfront property.
So how do we account for the fact that white-skinned people are here on a planet where they should not exist?
Thank you so much for the subscription, Olive. I really appreciate it. That's amazing. You are currently my biggest fan. Thank you. Yeah, what do you think of the stream alert? It's a good one, right? There we go. All right. My beautiful mother was going ahead and asked me what I wanted for dinner. Spell table? Yeah. Let's do that. I'm down.
I want to do it, but President Trump's been talking about this since his first term.
The White House put out a statement last night saying that the military option is on the table. Thank you, Mr. Secretary.
Thank you, Marco Rubio.
The military option is on the table. So is the administration really willing to risk the NATO alliance by potentially moving ahead with military operations?
What I think the White House said yesterday is what I will tell you now, and I've always said. The president always retained the option. If every president, not this president.
Hold on. Check it out. My birthday gift. Or Christmas gift. From my beautiful partner. That right there is Loot himself for my Maelstrom Wanderer, or not Maelstrom Wanderer, Yidris deck. The Japanese shatter foil, fractal foil, or whatever it's called. For my Cascade Storm. My passion for brews has not escaped me. On Spell Table, you're going to have to check out my Maelstrom Wandered, or oh my god, Yidris deck. It's pretty tight. Okay, back to imperialism and the end of the world.
every president always retains the option. I'm not talking about Greenland. I'm just talking about globally. If the president identifies a threat to the national security of the United States, every president retains the option to address it through military means. As a diplomat, which is what I am now, and what we work on, we always prefer to settle it in different ways. That included in Venezuela. We tried repeatedly to reach an outcome here that did not involve having to go in and grab an indicted drug trafficker. Those were unsuccessful, unfortunately.
The people of Venezuela are waking up to the same regime. Do you not worry about that?
Well, first of all, the bottom line is that there is a process now in place where we have tremendous control and leverage over what those interim authorities are doing and are able to do. But obviously this will be a process of transition. In the end, it will be up to the Venezuelan people to transform their country.
It's so over.
We are prepared under the right conditions, using the leverage that we have, which includes
It's
the
so
fact that they
over,
cannot
dude.
move any oil unless we allow them to move it to. Well, again.
So imagine this happening like 10 years ago. Okay. Right? Like, there was a time, briefly, where we could not have gotten away with this. There's no way that we could have. Part of the reason why we couldn't have gotten away with this was because, first of all, it would need to be done entirely differently. Maduro obviously would never have been kidnapped, would not have been assassinated, nothing like that. Part of the reason why this action is viable now is because of the overtime slippage of, I hate to sound like a liberal here, but international decorum. The United States has always held a very heavy-handed bully pulpit role, like in the UN. I mean, we can literally veto basically whatever the fuck we want. But the idea that we could go into a sovereign nation, for all the economic troubles Venezuela has, especially still a stable sovereign nation, and just yoink its leader and dip, and then say like, oh yeah, we control the government now. Like everything that they sell, all their imports, all of their exports, especially for oil, all that's ours now. We could not have done this. There was not the state of affairs of the world were not amenable to this kind of behavior, and the aims for American empire were different. It was just different. The way that we projected growth in the United States was we wanted to lock down our hemisphere and all of our potential enemies that weren't in the Middle East down with soft economic imperialism. If we could gobble up all these tiny nations, right, and indebt them to us through the IMF and the World Bank, we could effectively build an economic sphere in which the global reserve currency, being the United States dollar, allowed us to leverage very heavily in kind of a more abstract corporate sense the debts of everyone who owed us. And that made our multi-trillion-dollar debt not really matter all that much, right? I'm super duper summarizing, consolidating a lot of information into one very succinct interpretation of events, because to go through every little thing leading up to how we got to a point where the United States can just get away with yoinking like the leader of a sovereign nation, and just saying like, oh, we control that now, it'd be a lot longer than what I'm planning for the stream to go forward with. But to leave it at that for now, just know we have never been at this position in time, ever. This has never happened before. We are in new territory. We are in new territory for observing power that fascist governments in the past, in the 20th century, just simply did not have. Nazi Germany did not have the capability of doing this. They had the capability of, a complete invasion of another country like France or Austria, and they were capable of completely taking it over, and installing, their goons and like assholes in charge. But this particular type of surgical power was not available to the fascist, or to fascist regimes until now. And we let this happen. The Democrats, one half of the Uniparty, let this happen. Are we surprised that they let this happen? No, I'm not surprised. But it's still disheartening. It's a lot. It's terrible.
I'm not going to give you a timeline on it. We wanted to move as soon as possible. But we didn't expect this would... It's been 3 days since this happened, 4 days since this happened. So I understand that in this cycle and society we now live in, everyone wants instant outcomes. They want it to happen overnight. It's not going to work that way. But we're already seeing progress. With this new deal that's been announced and more deals to follow, you're already seeing how the leverage the United States has over those interim authorities is going to begin to lead to positive outcomes.
It's not even leverage, by the way. It's not even leverage. We just control them now. Oh, this part's important.
Well, it isn't going to cost us any money. For example, this oil deal that's happening doesn't cost us any money. On the contrary, and if it opens up, well, look, I don't have the numbers. What operation are you talking about? The entire thing?
Yeah.
Well, these troops are going to be deployed. None of these troops sit in a dry dock waiting for action. They're deployed somewhere in the world. If they're not here, they're somewhere else. Just today, our forces not deployed to the Caribbean seized a boat, a sanctioned boat tied to the IRGC that tried to flee from us. That happened somewhere else. We are constantly involved in action. We have boats in the Mediterranean. We have ships in the Middle East. We have ships in the Indo-Pacific. These ships, if they weren't in the Caribbean...
You see, and part of the narrative that they want to do is they want to rewrite history here. This is why I thought that this was particularly important. They want to rewrite a part of history right here. They want to rewrite the idea that this is just something we were already doing, right? This is just power we were already leveraging, right? Because in the mind of the American people, it certainly happy for the peoples of Venezuela, but we don't need to get into yet another decades-long conflict. I mean, I'm not happy for the people of Venezuela, and I would argue that most of the people who have been filmed showing support for the actions of the United States in Venezuela, like I agree with the second half of what you said, but really most of the people who have been showing support for what the United States is doing in Venezuela, honestly, those are people who agree with the opposition party, opposition party leader Mercado. I don't know. I don't think that the overall population of the Venezuelan people are very thrilled to have a sovereign leader. Being held for a long time, more than 1/4 fled, etc. It's horrible. Yeah, so the population of Venezuelans who are fleeing the country, it's indicative of a terrible situation, right? But I don't think that they are very pleased with our involvement on the ground. The fact that it's not just the fact that we kidnapped Maduro, who is a terrible leader. Top quintile of the world's richest countries on per capita basis today. It sits at the opposite end of the spectrum. Liberty Twitter. I understand the sentiment that you're coming from here, but I don't want to sit here and play even the littlest amount of defense for the imperialism that the United States is engaging in. So to kind of get across my point, if I were to say I'm happy for the people of Venezuela, right? What am I happy for? Am I happy that a dictator is gone? Not necessarily, because his VP just stepped up to the plate. And trust me, the United States running the country is going to make it worse. Venezuela is going to get worse. I don't care if there are Venezuelans that are happy. First of all, most of them are not. Yet, Jububat, yes, they will be they will be running the country. I just had Stephen Miller on with CNN where he explicitly stated that the United States is running the country. Matter of fact, here, we'll pull it up right now. We'll run it back. Here.
Pledging cooperation with the United States, pledging full.
So here's Maduro's VP sworn in as Venezuela's acting president.
Saying that if you supported out individuals or threatening with criminal penalties individuals if they supported the operation against Maduro. I think they did that today.
Well, the good news there, Jake, is that nobody inside of Venezuela supported the operation, so it's a law without meaning or effect. Look, Jake, there's going to be...
First of all, nobody in Venezuela supported the operation. One, this administration's not going to lie to you about their imperialist actions. They don't give a fuck what Venezuelans think. They don't give a shit.
Posturing that occurs when a nation has been so thoroughly defeated in this way. The United States of America, think about this, Jake. The United States of America, in history, has been stationed out of its against Maduro's drug oil embargo. Top of all that, right? Maduro, important though. Of course, there's going to be some posturing.
Let's get through the narrativization.
Very clear. Two are senior U.S. government official negotiators. They have sent message after message making clear that they will meet the terms, demands, conditions, and requirements of the United States.
Okay.
And
right here.
Very clear about that.
So let's the question about who is now running Venezuela
right
is
here.
one that even members of Congress who are big Trump supporters say they're not quite sure about. Senate Majority Leader John Thune told CNN's Monteraju that he doesn't know what President Trump meant by his assertion that the U.S. is running Venezuela, and he said he needs more information. Can you tell us what the president means when he says, is acting president...
Jububot, her denying the claim doesn't mean anything. We have complete and total control over the exports of oil in Venezuela. We have complete and total control over the nation of Venezuela. Stephen Miller is about to confirm. In addition to that, Marco Rubio, in the video that I was showing prior, confirmed again our control over Venezuela.
Delcy Rodriguez in charge. Is she running Venezuela or not?
Well, what the president said is true. The United States of America is running Venezuela. By definition, that's true. Jake, we live in
just listen very carefully here.
We live in a world in which you can talk all you want about international niceties and everything else. But we live in a world, in the real world, Jake, that is governed by strength, that is governed by force, that is governed by power. These are the iron laws of the world that have existed since the beginning of time.
But in terms of day-to-day operations in Venezuela...
Jubot, what do you mean by that? Also, Liberty Twitcher under the dictator on the Penn World table. PWT measure Venezuela is now the poorest country. Liberty Twitcher, it's not about the material conditions that the Venezuelans live in at this point. The United States can't go in there and fix that for them. The geopolitical precedent that is being set that a hyper-powerful nation such as the United States can go in and kidnap a foreign sovereign leader of a sovereign nation, regardless of how that dictator or that representative was elected, sets an incredibly dangerous precedent. There is a lot to be concerned for the Venezuelan people, because I do not believe for a second that things are going to get any better for them. I believe that they are going to get absolutely worse. And on top of that, how would you feel if it came out the other day that, or the next day, that Russia or China or NATO or whatever yoinked the sitting leader of a foreign sovereign nation and installed their own people, or forced the people who were next in line to capitulate to them? There are similar things that have happened like this before, and I'm sure that you were not a great fan of it. We don't go around doing that because this level of blatant statecraft is unprecedented. Even if things similar to it happened in the past, this level is an escalation of this kind of behavior. And if the United States sets this precedent, what do you think that means for Taiwan, for example? And China's very tentative standoff with Taiwan. Let's see. they're not free anymore. They're under new management. Even if they weren't free before, it's not like I think Maduro was a good leader. Except the Shah shall maybe one day return to Iran. Man, I didn't know that I was gonna the first people that I was gonna attract on my leftist stream were was Genghis Khan 233 and these fucking imperialism defenders over here. That's crazy.
Venezuela, that is acting President Rodriguez, right? It's not some sort of American emissary.
Look, Stephen Miller clarifies.
And we'll keep going here, Jake. So I want to say what I'm saying, and then you'll follow up. But what I'm saying is just one level above that, which is that by definition, we are in charge. Because we have the United States military stationed outside the country. We set the terms and conditions. We have a complete embargo on all of their oil and their ability to do commerce. So for them to do commerce, they need our
And he's not lying.
For them to be able to run an economy, they need our permission.
He's
So
not
the United
lying
States
here.
is in charge. The United
He's not
States
making
is
an
running.
argument to free the Venezuelan people. He's not making an argument of democracy. He's not even making an argument of just might makes right. He's saying that might is the right of way. And by saying this, and by going down the list of the things that the United States has explicit control over, he and Marco Rubio in the previous conference that I was taking a look at have demonstrated that they're not talking shit out of their ass. You can go look up on live UA map what's going down. For an oppressive regimes, Iran to hammer women's rights down. Iran was so free many years ago before the Islamic Revolution that happened. The Shah gave them that freedom. The Islamic Revolution occurred after extended involvement in the Middle East by Britain, the United States, and the Soviet Union. The imperialism of Britain, the UK, the United States, and the Soviet Union is what led to the radicalization that would eventually lead to the state that the Middle East is in today, particularly Iran. Afghanistan is in the same situation. I don't want an oppressive regime anywhere. What I can say, though, is I can argue for some sort of stability. Maduro is a terrible leader. I don't know how many times I'm going to have to say that. I don't know how many times I'm going to have to get it through people's heads that I don't agree with the Venezuelan government or certain time periods of the Iranian government or whatever oppressive regime that you want to pull up that is irrelevant to the overall argument that a lot of what causes these regimes is our fault. A lot of the reason why these nations have populations of people and leaders radicalized, oftentimes funded by us. You can read the Pentagon Papers, the Afghanistan Papers. A lot of the times that this happens, it's our fault. It really is just imperialism, man. Do you think the Venezuelan people are going to be better now that the United States has unilateral control over their macro economy? No, they're not. The ideal thing that would have happened to Maduro is he would have got what was coming to him, Benito Mussolini style. The people have to decide the future. Yet it is our fault, though. Imperialism is to blame for the vast majority of radicalization against the United States, against American empire, against the EU, against Russia, against China. When smaller, less powerful nations are radicalized into becoming rogue states or having incredibly oppressive dictatorships, it is an extreme reaction to our militaristic, imperialistic involvement in their governance and their affairs. Boobot, thank you. I don't want Maduro to lead Venezuela. Okay? I would never argue for that. But it has to be something that the people of Venezuela have to handle. Any action that we take is going to make things worse. We can turn to Trump. Trump said his global power was limited only by his own morality. Now, I'm not a big fan of the New York Times, but they have some transcript here. We can read it. President Trump brushed aside international law and repeated his goal for the U.S. to own Greenland. We'll tie this back to Venezuela in just a minute. Quote, do you see any checks on your power on the world stage? Is there anything that could stop if you wanted to? Yeah, there's one thing. My own morality, my own mind. It's the only thing that can stop me. And that's very good. I don't need international law. I'm not looking to hurt people. Do you feel your administration needs to abide by international law on the global stage? Yeah, I do. But it depends what your definition of international law is. You mean in Greenland? We had in Greenland, and then he cuts them off. Well, that's because you needed them. Starting in the 1951 agreement, though, it says the United States can reopen these bases anytime you want. You can send as many troops as you want, and you haven't done it. How come? Because I want to do it properly. And properly means own it? Well, it does. To me, it's ownership. Ownership is very important. Why is ownership important here? Because it's what I feel is psychologically needed for success. I think that ownership gives you a thing that you can't do. Whether you're talking about a lease or a treaty, ownership gives you things and elements that you can't get from just signing a document that you can have a base. There are no checks and balances anymore. Not on a federal level. And Trump, barefaced, said that the only thing stopping him is his own morality. I am not necessarily sure that I trust any part of that to be and by not necessarily sure, I am absolutely sure that I am not willing to trust any part of that as being the right check and balance on how we're going to get through unitary executive theory. Because it won. Congress can't do anything. There are Republicans in Congress right now who, Senate Republicans and House Republicans, who are very much in opposition to a large part of the Trump administration's agenda. And they are locked the fuck down. There is nothing they can do. And a lot of them have to keep falling back into line. Moving forward. Trump said his global power was limited only by his own morality. Trump told Times during a wide-ranging interview last night that he alone was the arbiter of his authority as commander-in-chief. He brushed aside international law and other checks on his power to order the U.S. military to strike or invade nations around the world. The president said that he expected that the U.S. would be running Venezuela and extracting its oil for much longer than a year. He insisted that the country's interim leaders, once members of Nicolas Maduro's regime before he was detained by U.S. troops, are giving us everything that we feel is necessary. Hours after the interview, the Senate agreed to debate a war powers resolution aimed at curbing the president's use of military force in Venezuela. 5 Republicans joined Democrats in a rare bipartisan rebuke of the White House. One of those Republicans said that Trump's comments to the Times about controlling Venezuela for years may have tipped the vote. In Venezuela, the government announced the release of political prisoners, an apparent gesture of change by its new leadership. So even though the VP of Venezuela steps up and calls what the United States is doing, her own words, Zionist in action, right? These words of spite don't matter. And those are correct words. That's a correct, astute observation. It's Zionist in feel, in vibe. It mirrors Zionist policy and Zionist imperial action. But it doesn't matter what she says, because she is more than willing to capitulate to the United States. Again, this is the reason why Mikado, even though she sucked up to Trump so hard that she dedicated her bullshit Nobel Peace Prize to him, still isn't going to be picked as, she's never going to run Venezuela, because she will not entirely align herself when it matters. She cannot be trusted to entirely align herself with the goals and desires of American imperialism. Right. Then, let's see. Why don't you give me that article, please? Thank you. Oh, wait, nope. We already read that one. Let's see. There was one more. Yes. During a CNN interview on Monday, Stephen Miller escalates Trump's threats for the U.S. to take over Greenland and defends Venezuela raid in fiery CNN appearance. During a CNN interview on Monday, Stephen Miller offered an aggressive defense of the Trump administration's recent map-scrambling moves in the Western Hemisphere, including the capture of the deposed leader of Venezuela and resuming its threats to take over Greenland. Miller, the deputy White House chief of staff and Homeland Security advisor, argued that under the Trump doctrine, the U.S. will use its military unapologetically to secure U.S. interests, which he said were synonymous with the future of the free world. We're a superpower, and under President Trump, we are going to conduct ourselves as a superpower. As Tapper pressed Miller for how the administration explained leaving another top Maduro figure in power, Miller said expecting opposition leader and Nobel laureate Maria Corina Machado to step in and assume power was absurd and preposterous. As the anchor asked Miller how the White House justified invading a sovereign country and arresting its leader, Miller cut in and insisted, "Damn straight we did." They only care about aura farming. That's all they care about. They don't care about actual politics. They don't care about the facade of a narrative where they pretend to care. They don't care at all. It doesn't matter to them. They just want power. And they're willing to trade our allyship with Taiwan. They're willing to lie time and time again about domestic issues in the United States to distract us from the imperialist actions of the United States abroad. It's just fascistic imperialism. I mean, yes, the entire regime has literally been explained by the phrase, "Oh, so you're 12." Yeah. Bubot, Greenland still won't happen with a military venture. The handlers in the military-industrial complex won't let a break-off of NATO happen. Too much money in it. That might be true. That might be true. However, the Trump administration has been known to kind of run off on its own and do whatever it wants. That is one thing that I want to see them put their balls on the table for. In the case of Denmark and the EU has just said constantly that, oh, we're monitoring the situation. We're monitoring the future outcomes that are happening here. Denmark stated, kind of defensively, unsurprisingly, that if boots on the ground happened in Greenland, that there would be defensive action taken, in the sense that they would take the necessary legal, like international, like by legal, I mean military action permissed under international law against United States soldiers and boots on the ground in Greenland. So I don't know where we're going with Greenland, but I do know that the Trump administration wants it. They want it bad, and they might be willing to break away from even more standards and expectations set by their lobbying interests and so on and so forth. We have no We have no idea what this administration is capable of justifying to itself or what they're willing to break away from, since they constantly break every single standard and gentleman's agreement ever to get whatever they want. Chris, you want to take that island that doesn't belong to you because you think the international adults won't stop you? You're 12. Yeah, and that is what the administration is like.